There is a whole world of cinema to be discovered. You just have to overcome that 1-inch barrier known as subtitles. This is that 1-inch barrier. Nick LaBarriere, Josh Barry, and Kieran Griffiths. Boys, how are we this morning?
Good. Yeah.
Good. New studio setup.
Look at it.
How exciting.
Show off the physical media.
Represent physical media. Streaming is average, as I found out last night. Trying to look for a certain movie I wanted to watch. Physical media is king. But yes, a brand new setup, a visually, hopefully pleasing thing for you all to look at if you're watching on the YouTube. And if you're not watching on YouTube, you should go on there and like and subscribe and leave a comment about how much you hate our opinion on international cinema or how much you love the films that we cover. For those who don't know, if you are just joining us, you're on the new podcast and YouTube channel. But if you are wondering, if you've been on Nick's Flicks Fix channel lately and gone, where the hell is that 1-inch barrier? We're here now. So we might put a little thing out there, that 1-inch barrier on Instagram, YouTube, podcast channels. We are fully live and operational on there.
Yeah.
How are we, guys? We good?
Good. Yeah, excited to be in a new space. Like you said, our listeners are probably very confused, but that's fine. You guys just nothing's changed for you. Just come along for the ride and have a good time. But we're good. We're excited.
Yeah.
To talk about a film from a director who's been killing it lately with English language films.
He has been indeed. May have heard this name during the latest Oscar season, but Yorgos Lanthimos, who recently got his acclaim with Poor Things, featuring Emma Stone. He obviously, other Oscar-nominated films were The Favourite.
Also with Emma Stone.
Also with Emma Stone. And also with Emma Stone, his new film's already coming out in June this year, Kinds of Kindness.
Good.
I haven't watched the trailer purposefully.
Looks good.
But we're wasting no time.
No, not at all. No. But I feel like it's safe to say we're all Yorgos fans here. He's a Greek director, so this is the first time we're also going to Greece
awesome.
for a film.
Yep.
You're a fan?
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen 2 of his films, shamefully. I've seen Poor Things and absolutely loved it. I've seen The Favourite and absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
His other English language films that people would know are Killing the Sacred Deer.
Oh, I love that movie.
With Colin Farrell. And
The Lobster.
with Colin Farrell. He likes working with actors multiple times, which, I mean, is usually a good sign of a good director, right? You know, if actors are coming back to work with that director again, it usually means they've got some interesting projects
lined up.
But we're going back to his native Greece to 2009.
2009, to a little film called Dogtooth. Now, if you've been a fan of the show since day one, you'll know how weirdly well, and this is, I think, a you problem, audience, how well the horny films do on this show. You guys like a little bit of a sex movie when we cover them. So I thought we'd throw a curveball. I thought I'd throw a curveball at you and go, put a sex movie forward, but maybe not the sex you were thinking.
This is a great indication that there are 2 kinds of horny films, right? There's good horny and there's bad horny. Ita Mama Tambien, that's good horny. Dogtooth, bad horny.
This is the one where you kind of go to horny jail. You're out of here.
Yeah.
So
this is the one where you're whacking the dog with a newspaper going, down boy.
But as Kieran would say, it's 2009. It's from Greece. It's the first time we've gone to Greece on the show. And it's about a controlling and manipulative father who locks his 3 adult offsprings in a state of perpetual childhood by keeping them prisoner within the sprawling family compound. So we'd seen this before.
Yeah.
And you'd watched it quite without knowing I was going to choose it quite recently.
I did,
actually, yeah.
But I did. This is the first Yorgos film I ever watched.
Oh, wow.
I watched this when it came out.
So did I. I was working at the video store at this point, and by the time it came out to DVD in Australia, and like in fairness, I will admit, I was like 15, 16, and I was like, R-rated for sex. And I was like, let's see what this is about. And then I went home and I was like, oh, I was like, not what I was expecting.
Is that your sex education?
This movie was my. It was my sexual awakening. No, it was not. It was not. If you watched the movie, you know that. But
it was properly acclaimed at the time. I remember
it was nominated for Best Foreign Language Feature at the Oscar, which after you've watched the film is fucking mind-blowing.
Right?
Because the Oscars are generally a pretty safe... You know, they don't go too wild.
There's a slight prudishness about the Oscar, the Academy,
so
right?
Something like this is pretty ballsy.
And I believe it was the first film in over a decade from Greece to be selected at the Cannes Film Festival.
Wow.
As well. So Greece had not, been doing as much acclaimed work in this time. So this was your first time watching Dogtooth?
Yeah, first time. First of Yorgos' Greek films. First Greek film in general, I think. And first time watching Dogtooth. But I was aware of it. I'd seen people talking about it. I knew it was a Yorgos Lanthimos film. And it's sort of been on my list for that reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, first time watching it.
So I think one of the most interesting aspects I want to talk about, at least with this film, and sort of comparing it to his most recent film, Poor Things, as well, is the idea of looking at sexuality, coming of age in sexuality, but in a very regressed way, in a very childlike way is probably the best way to put it, and the most uncomfortable way to put it, to be honest. But that's Yorgos Lanthimos' filmmaking in general. But these three adult children who are locked away in this compound by a very controlling father, by a father who purposefully teaches them misinformation about the world, about how dangerous the world is, changes certain words to mean certain things in regards to whether it's body parts or things in the world. But they're obviously very mentally affected by that. Their IQ is childlike, but we are watching early 20s, mid 20s bodies do that. And we've just seen that recently in Poor Things. To spoil it mildly, that is part of the premise of Poor Things. It's a child's brain in a woman's body. Yeah. In a fully grown woman's body, and then it's a coming of age story. It's a story about finding your sexuality and things like that. This movie is definitely about those things, but on a I would say far more chaotic scale. Yeah. Sex is not necessarily celebrated in this like it kind of is in Poor Things, in my opinion. This is very much like when sex goes rampant and you kind of go like the uncontrollable primal urges of humanity come through when you don't teach it properly.
Yeah, I mean, it's done in a controlled manner. The dad has got one of his work colleagues to come.
The security guard from his factory. Yeah,
come every now and then and have sex with his son.
Yeah, like
and
quite
it's
literally.
Like a chore. Like it's
very mechanical sex, isn't it? Like that's like the first sort of instance of sex in the film is she rocks up. She basically goes, okay, are we going to do it? Yeah. And the son's like, yep. They just take their clothes off. She assumes a position on the bed. He assumes a position on top. And you're kind of like, there's no foreplay. There's no love. It's just mechanical sex. It's just like the father's gone, okay, he's at an age now where the hormones are so rampant. Yeah. He was probably, imagine being in that compound and having your first boner and not knowing what the fuck's going on. Then having like your first wet dream, you're like, what the fuck is going on? And then your dad's like, oh yes, this is actually probably because you're a sinner or something. We need to find a woman to come and and sort that out. So, but the biggest thing, and this is sort of where the story goes, is that this security guard, Christina, is kind of like, well, if I'm going to be having sex with this guy, I kind of want it to work for me as well. And he refuses, so he goes to the two sisters who are there.
That's the most realistic part of the film, is a man refusing to go down on a woman.
I mean, that's true. Everything that is heightened about Yorgos Lanthimos' filmography, he is dead fucking wrong about this one. So, and it's just, sort of about how sex and power and the very sort of, commonalities between how they're used for and against each other as well. But for me, I think... and this is sort of, again, related to that Poor Things element of it, it is so tough to act with a regressed mentality, and not have it be firstly like weirdly offensive or too funny. Like I don't know, because I believed the fact that these three kids were very sheltered.
It's definitely, if you put it up against Poor Things, it's a lot more subtle. Like they're obviously Emma Stone is. You can tell there's a baby's brain in her.
Yeah.
Body, but
it's the goo goo gaga element of it, right? Yeah.
This is quite subtle in that.
Yeah, I think it's a great example of what kids would be like had they been. I mean, it's a great indictment on homeschooling.
Homeschooling
kids. Such a good point, actually. Yeah, because they do have an education, right?
Yeah.
It's just a really shit one. To be honest. It's a purposely misinformation-filled education. Yeah.
But I think. Yeah, coming back to the Poor Things comparison, I think whereas in that film, like sex is celebrated and coming of age is celebrated, and it's all about, and people will probably disagree, but I think Poor Things is very much a film about empowerment and female liberation and self-identity. And it's a mostly positive film, whereas this is very much the opposite. It's the negative aspects. It's controlling. And that controlling of language and societal norms and things like that. And I mean, I've only seen 3 Yorgos films now, but sex is obviously a pretty big part of, the themes.
Yeah, like when you see like
is the same.
The Lobster and Killing of a Sacred Deer and how sex is used in those films as well is the Lobster, especially because it's a movie about finding the like using science to find the perfect mate.
Yeah.
So then sex plays a big part of that.
Yeah.
And then Killing of a Sacred Deer, sex is used again as like a power thing.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting the way he
comes up in
utilizes it.
Alps as well.
Interesting, because you did watch that, yeah.
I just watched that, which is the film after this, and that's a big part of that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just have to add it to the
So
watch
it's
list.
definitely a commonality,
It
a
is,
common
yeah,
thread
for sure.
all of his films. It's something that he obviously identifies with as an interesting concept as a director.
Yeah.
But I think he uses it differently in each film from what I've
Yes.
seen. Like I said, this is very much the negative side of sex and control and power and things like that. And you've got, like you said, these 20-somethings, fighting over a toy airplane.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
And using like stickers as a reward for good behavior. And it's
Yeah.
like they sit down at dinner and go, "Oh, how many stickers have you been given?"
They're comparing it before dinner too because they know their father's going to bring it up. They're just like, "How many do you have?" And she's like, "Oh, you have way more than me." And it's like, you're in your mid-20s, but that's the crazy part about it.
Yeah, it's a
The
weird
plane,
film.
the plane thing really got me actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because so basically, there's a plane flying over, and the kids are seeing it
For the first time, yeah.
But the parents then basically from over a tree or something throw a little toy plane on the ground, and all the kids think the plane's fallen out of the sky.
Yeah, the parents are like, "Oh, the plane crashed. Come and get it!" And they're all running in the field trying
For
to
this
fly
toy
an
plane.
airplane in the ground.
Thought, wow, like if you didn't know
Yeah.
the mechanics of that whole thing, that's
And if you did that
So
with
easy.
a 5-year-old,
yeah.
they
You get
believe
away, you get away with it, yeah.
Because I mean, like you think
So
about
cool.
how big a plane is when you see it in the sky, and if you don't have any concept of depth,
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you just assume that when it lands on the ground that it's the same size.
Yeah.
That's it, because they're basically they are told that there is a world out there. They know that there are things outside of these walls, but there is so much fear put into them about the dangers of it that they don't want
Not
to.
allowed to step out.
They're not allowed. So their dad tells them the only way they can leave the compound is in a car.
in a car. That's right.
And you can only leave the compound when you lose your dog tooth.
When you lose your dog tooth, which is the name of the film.
Tooth. And obviously, as an adult, you don't
Lose them.
your
You
teeth.
don't. No.
And then you can only safely go out in the car, and you can only learn to drive when your dog tooth regrows.
He's come up like you got to. I'm not going to give a lot to this guy because he's a dickhead, but he's creative.
the dad,
He's very
He is
creative. This dad, the amount of rules he comes up with is just ridiculous. But yeah, the biggest thing is like this power he has over them with this star system, and like whoever has the most stars can choose the entertainment for the family.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh, I want to watch a videotape. We haven't watched a videotape." And you're like, "Oh, cool. It'll be like a movie." He's like, "No, it's just all the home movies that they've shot of him." And then I like the way that comes back later on when Christina, uses bargaining chips like VHS tapes that she has to get sex from the other daughters.
Yeah.
And then how that influenced then, they watch Rocky and they watch Jaws, and it's like, they start quoting from these films thinking how this is how people I love the scene. I love the scene where she's in the bathroom and she's doing Rocky to the window and she puts the drink in her mouth and she's imitating like the last bit of Rocky getting punched. Like, it's just the acting in this for me is incredible. Like it's
really
not
good.
something like I said, it's such a fine line to sort of to teeter on in regards to not being so childlike regress that it's funny.
Yeah.
Because you feel bad for them. But overall, and this is a very Yorgos thing as well, it's a funny movie.
Oh, yeah,
it
totally.
is darkly
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would like to see how
agree,
Kieran thinks.
but definitely not to the same extent of, again, the only other two films I've seen from him in The Favourite and Poor Things.
Favorite and Poor Things are funny.
I feel
movies.
okay laughing at The Favourite and Poor Things.
Sure.
This is sort of like a nervous chuckle. It's the Ralph
that's fair.
Wiggum, I'm in danger kind of thing when you're
fair.
watching this. I
That's
was trying to
fair.
say, the real crime of the film is that woman's first experience with Rocky was Rocky 4.
Whoa. Hold up.
I
Hold
grew
up.
up on Rocky 4.
Rocky 4 is fantastic. And if it means we just got to watch it in Russian to do it on the show, I'll fucking do it. No, we're not going to get into controversial Rocky opinions here. Rocky's great, but it's the most boring out of the 5. So
It's interesting, like you said, that their exposure to outside culture, comes in the form of these classic Hollywood films.
Yep.
But also, I think Christina refers to the son, because none of the children have names.
yes.
She refers to the son as a zombie.
And then
And he doesn't know what it means, but he pretends he does.
that's
He doesn't know what it
right.
means, he doesn't know what it
Yeah,
means. So he goes to his mum, and he's like, "What's a zombie?"
Yeah.
And she kind of freaks out because she's like, "How does he know
Where
this
the
word
fuck
that
does
we
this come
haven't
from?
introduced him to?"
Yeah.
And like on the spot, she's just like, "Oh, a zombie is a little yellow flower."
Yeah.
And then later in the film,
He's standing in the garden looking at some flowers. He's like, "Mum, I found a zombie in the garden."
it's great. It's so great. But you're right. It's almost like a nervous chuckle, isn't it? Because you're like, oh, that's funny. But then you're like, oh, that's fucked up. Like that's, there's something really, really dark about it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's just the story overall, before we like sort of break down the real like that horny side of it. The breakdown of the story for me as well is we kind of do, without spoiling too much, do get a bit of liberation at the end, but it comes at quite a cost, and we see some pretty messed up things throughout. Like especially with the fact that they see a cat. And what happens to the cat in regards to, because they think it's a monster and things like that. So,
because if you've never seen,
an animal before, right?
Then and that comes into it. The dad's like, "This is the most dangerous thing in the world. Like, you don't go outside,
and it's in our backyard
because you might get attacked by a cat." And there's this this other brother which never existed,
who went outside the walls, right?
Yes.
Who left and that's cooked when the dad comes back after that. It's so messed up.
The cat incident. So the dad, cuts himself up,
puts
fake blood, and then comes back and he's like, "I was attacked by the cat.
Your brother
killed your brother."
Yeah, vengeance. I was trying to get, but it's the whole like overarching thing of the movie is that just like abuse of power is so detrimental that. But these are the effects of it as well. When you have kids who then, spoiler alert, children who start having sex with each other and exploring that sexuality and then get violent and then use violence in order to overthrow. It's almost like I'm not going to say it's like a complete allegory for like revolutions and stuff like that, but it's kind of what it's about. It's kind of like when you have so much power over something, there's no such thing as that much control. If the people want what they want, they will get what they want.
Yeah.
And it just goes to a very extreme cases of sex and violence in this film, of which we are forcibly confronted to watch.
I think that's one of the
siblings fondle each other,
right? Is because it's not sort of like this. There's no sort of purity in this sexual exploration of these people who are siblings in the film. And
purity is a good word.
There's no kind of curiosity of them exploring their sexuality, right?
No,
because they have no one else to explore it with. It comes about because they find out that Christina's been feeding them information of the outside world.
And they use,
they get rid of her.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, well, our son needs someone to have sex with. Let's blindfold him.
And let him choose.
And blindfold him, have both of his sisters come into the room naked, have him fondle them, and then decide which one he wants to have sex with.
It's so messed up. It's so. Don't let this be a deterrent, by the way, because it's a really good film. It's just very
You
Greek.
have to be able to handle it. Very Greek.
It's just very Greek. If we know anything about ancient Greek tragedies, they love a little bit of incest. It's just Greek.
It's kind of their thing, right?
It's their thing, right?
Incest and debt.
Bo Burnham's best line: "Oedipus was the first motherfucker." So think about that one. It's very confronting in that regard. And I especially think this is purposely probably not a film I watched with my partner as well, because I love introducing her to the world of international cinema. I don't think I'm just going to expose her directly to the incest movie. But I think as well, it's not used. There's again, like the acting, there's like a line that it teeters of exploitative and actually telling a story as well. And I think that's something Yorgos does well. I think and I've said it before, especially about European films, there's such a lack of prudence with sex that I appreciate about European films, that you can kind of explore a story like this and not have it feel like, oh, okay, this makes no sense to the plot. Like every sex scene for me in this film was like, okay, this is like another step forward in how the power dynamics are shifting.
Yeah, massive part of it.
Exactly, yeah. How Christina uses sex for power she uses for bargaining ultimately. She offers headbands and VHS tapes for someone just to eat her out, right? Like that's all she wants, right?
It's to lick her keyboard.
Lick her keyboard, as they say. Yeah.
That's a great example of, again, we talked about the zombie thing meaning flowers. They've been taught that keyboard refers to their vaginas.
Their vaginas. So
there's one part where, one of the sisters says to the other sister, "I want you to lick my keyboard." And we know what it means.
Yeah.
And it's just so, it's this dark, depressing moment, but it's so fucking funny.
One of the funniest bits in regards to licking, though, in the film is that the first time Christina comes up and to the eldest sister for the first time and goes, I want you to lick me and I'll give you the headband. And she starts like licking the shoulder. And then it goes to the sister is like, I'll give you the headband if you lick me. And then the sister just starts like licking the stuff. Like they don't understand that the concept is to lick their keyboard. It's just like, oh, this licking thing is such great. Like this must be one of the best feelings in the world if Christina likes it. And they just start licking arms and shoulders and stomachs and stuff. It's so awkward. Yeah. But it's great. I just think like the movie, Yorgos' script, which he co-wrote, by the way, with the longtime writer, if I butcher this, sorry, Efthimus Philippou. He's written a few films with him. I think the script justifies its awkwardness and its sex and the violence as well, especially towards the end, so well because it isn't. For me, it was an interesting look at power dynamics and how we use power dynamics in that regard. But any other comments on that before? Because I want to sort of talk about then Greek films and our lack of knowledge of them and sort of. Is this the standard to expect from that? Is there anything else you boys wanted to bring up?
I think you've covered it off all pretty well. I think, there's definitely those themes that run throughout his films of things like sex and power and control and sort of coming of age and things like that. It is an uncomfortable film, but like you said, I think all of the sex scenes kind of serve a narrative purpose.
Sure.
Whereas I totally get the criticism of a lot of American films, especially where sex scenes exist just to be sex scenes.
Yeah.
Oh, look at these, two really attractive people
getting no
clothes on. Whereas these are not flattering sex scenes.
You're not gonna.
Nice
this is not
to watch.
This and the same way with Etzema Tabian, how like those sex scenes make a lot of sense for the story. Some of those are pretty hot. Like some of those sex scenes, as all like 1,000 perverts you out there that watched our video of it, you get what we're saying. But yeah, this is definitely not a film where I walked away going like, that was sexy. It wasn't. It absolutely wasn't. But there was never a point where I was like, oh, this is too much. Oh, this, for me at least, it all worked for the film. And considering that it's rated R in Australia, and one of the things it's rated for is actual sexual activity. We see things get fondled in this film. There's no prudiness at all to that. Very, very European.
But it never... But it never feels like it's done for shock value, right?
No, never, no.
Even the most shocking moments of the film aren't sort of,
both the violence as well, like the sex and the violence.
Like I think of, directors like Eli Roth, right?
Sure.
Where everything in those films just exists to shock and offend you.
Yeah.
Whereas there's nothing in this that doesn't sort of serve the greater narrative.
Yeah, totally.
Every act of sex, every act of violence drives the plot forward or develops the characters.
Yeah.
How great is the last few minutes of this film as well? The intensity of the last 10 minutes, like probably even 5 minutes, because it's a quick film. It's like 97 minutes or something.
Love a quick film.
And it moves as well. Like for me, it moved quite quickly. That last 5 minutes is fantastic. I fucking love the last 5 minutes of this movie.
I mean, if you're portraying these themes, it's never going to be an easy watch.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And I probably would liken... No, I'm not liking it to, but it's got a similar theme to an Australian film.
Oh. Which film?
Bad Boy Bubby.
Bad Boy Bubby. Does that count as international cinema? I have seen Bad Boy Bubby.
I'm familiar with it, but I've not seen it.
I think a lot of that stuff is shock value.
Yeah, for sure.
That's very John Waters-esque, I feel.
Oh, if John Waters, was like even more of it. If John Waters was mixed with Eli Roth, actually, that's probably the best way to put that. That's funny. My brother was a butcher's apprentice when he first left school, and that was like, within the first week, they're like, you got to watch Bad Boy Bubby. And I watched the video store. He's like, what's Bad Boy Bubby? I was like, let's watch Bad Boy Bubby. And then it's like not a great movie to watch with your younger brother.
One of the seventh wonders of the world.
It's a great comparison. It's that same thing though. It's a
mum keeps her son
in
for like 35 odd years.
Yeah, it gets way more hectic than this.
Yeah.
That regressed IQ of a child's mind and an adult body is taken to a very hectic degree.
But it's also like similar to like Cloverfield.
10 Cloverfield Lane. Yeah. Just
in the you can't leave the compound. You're not sure what's on the other side.
It's funny you say that because when I was reading up about the film as well, Yorgos Lanthimos actually said, like, for a movie where the story was so claustrophobic, we actually didn't want the compound to feel small. They wanted these kids to feel like they were in it's a big house, it's a big garden, so like they have this almost like their own world, basically, right?
It's nice. Like
it's
the garden
lovely,
nice and Nothing bad like that. It's just you're not allowed to leave.
You just can't, unless you've lost your dog tooth and you're in a car and you can only get in a car once you've regrown your dog tooth. So, but it's just basic rules, guys. I don't know what you're all complaining about.
If you've ever wanted to watch an art house film version of the Joseph Fritzl case,
I don't know this.
are you not familiar with
Joseph Fritzl? I'll show you a photo of him later, and you'll know. You'll know, yeah. Well, yeah, sure. That's kind of what it is. Yeah. Just think it's like very Bad Boy Bubby as well. Just locking people up. For a long time. Basically, like what Room was about, not The Room.
Room.
Room's probably
another one.
Probably like the Hollywood comparison, where it's very much like. In that regard, that's a good pull. Actually, I like that. Joseph Fritzl. Jeez, I never thought he'd come up on this podcast.
You should have known with me on the show it's going to happen.
Go ahead.
Greek films.
So, I mean, like, I feel like I've seen... I can't really name off the top of my head, but like I feel like I've seen movies, especially like comedies. I feel like I've seen from like, I mean, I'm not going to call My Big Fat Greek Wedding a Greek comedy, but
I'll let you count that if I can count Troy.
You know what? Okay, it counts. But in that sense, like I think like whenever I've done like the Greek Film Festival, like covering that and stuff, it always seems like comedies. I probably liken it very closely to like Italian films as well. I feel it's a very close sentiment of looking at like, especially they love countrysides and like, these rural Greek towns or rural Italian towns where everyone's a little bit more wacky, which is a very universal sort of story, right? Yeah. This to me though doesn't necessarily scream Greece. I think this is actually like quite a weirdly universal story.
Yeah, I mean, it is set in this house and garden.
Yeah, you could have done it anywhere, right? Like that's its whole thing. Alps, though, I'd be intrigued to know with Alps what your takeaway of that and Greek film was, if there was any.
Yeah, look, same as what you've just said. It doesn't feel overly Greek.
Interesting, yeah.
I mean, I've never been to Greece.
No, neither have I. Have you?
No. Actually, I think I did as a kid.
There we go.
Yeah.
Like
I want to go.
2.
I really want to go.
Yeah. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting, yeah.
Yeah, it feels similar, because I think it's only a couple of years after this.
Alps was? Okay, yeah.
So it feels quite similar.
Well, a few years after this was when he sort of started getting into English language, right? Because
Yes.
Lobster was 2015?
I think so. Lobster, then Killing, then Favorite. And look at him now. He's just on an absolute roll.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, like, you could have taken this story and, put it in any country. Similar, though, you could have put The Lobster. The Lobster actually weirdly would have made more sense as like a European film, you know what I mean? Like it's weird and it's odd and it's, it actually was quite like a culture shock for, I believe that was a British production, if I recall correctly. So yeah, there's this sort of, there's an oddity to it that kind of transcends country in a way, I guess, so to say. And that's how I felt with Dogtooth, is that this to me felt more like a Yorgos Lanthimos film than it did a film from Greece. And, we can definitely say that about a lot of the films we watch as well. But there are a fair few that we've watched that do. And I think making that comparison again to our other horny film, Ese Mama También is such a film about Mexico as much as it is about this three-person relationship, right?
Mexico's socioeconomic and political status at the time is so embedded in that.
Sure.
And I'm sure that there are themes in this film that Yorgos is exploring due to his, Greek upbringing.
Yeah.
But I think,
good point.
It is very much a Yorgos film, and I think when he's such a strong voice as an auteur, naturally it's going to feel more like a him film, in the same way that a Tarantino film feels like a Tarantino film.
Yep.
Or to use some foreign examples, a Bong Joon-ho film feels like a Bong Joon-ho film.
Yeah. That's interesting.
There's another Greek film that I saw a few years back called Suntan, which definitely felt very Greece, because it's kind of set beaches and which is kind of it's what I picture Greece.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Vineyards and coastal towns.
Yes. Yeah. Which is why I feel like that Italy comparison is like, that's kind of, I feel like what I get in Italian film as well. Mediterranean, yeah.
I remember that being a bit awkward as well, Suntan, but I highly recommend that.
Interesting.
And then another one I saw recently was, I saw Apples. Did you? Apples was 2020 and was getting quite critically acclaimed. And another one, which actually reminded me quite a bit of a Yorgos film, was Attenberg. I think Attenberg's on the movie.
Okay.
Very odd.
All right.
Like really quirky.
So that's our takeaway from this. Greece are making really odd films.
From what I've seen, very quirky.
Quirky.
Sort of, yeah.
Quirky's nicer than odd. Yeah, for sure.
I think as well, like it's so hard for us to, I guess, put a pin on a lot of foreign countries' cinema because we only get exposed to such a small portion.
That's so true. Yeah,
so it's like we might think, and I think I've said this on an episode previously. We might think of all Korean films as thrillers or crime films because that might just be what we get out of Korea. Yeah. In the same way that we think of French films as romantic dramas because that's just what we get exposed to in France.
For sure.
So I think we have to kind of keep that in mind in that, I'm sure Greece is making, dark comedies as much as they're making war films and dramas and crime thrillers. Yeah. But it's just, I guess, what we see is such a small percentage of their output.
Do you know what's funny about that? And it's actually what I think about all the time with the film festivals that come to Brisbane, right? So we've got the Greek Film Festival, Italian Film Festival, French Film Festival, whatever. We do actually, and this is not a slight to the film festivals at all, but you're actually exposed to a lot of the mediocre films that they make as well, just as the United States make a shitload of mediocre films, just as Australia make a lot of mediocre films. Like those film festivals are where you are exposed to those things, and that's when you will see the Greek comedy that you didn't, it's exactly as average as we would make a comedy, as the United States would make a comedy, and you can sit there and go, that was fine. Like that's what I think. I think for a film to make its way properly, like in the mainstream from Greece to Australia, it has to be something like this that is kind of controversial and has some awards laden notoriety behind it and stuff. Something we would never see made here until Bad Boy Bobby. You know what I mean? Like it's. I was like, shot myself in the foot there. Like we made this film, Yorgos. You fucking hack.
I wonder if he's seen that.
I think foreign countries are just as capable of making shit movies.
100%.
As we are.
And they just don't make it here because they're not good enough to make it here. Same way I don't think Australian films, like there is probably so many. How big do you think The Nugget was overseas? But goddamn, I love that movie. You know what I mean? Like, exactly. I don't think it's done gangbusters.
Well, that's it. People probably think of, and I talked to the director of Bird Eater about
Jim Weir.
Jim Weir. And I said, why is it that seemingly all the Australian films that are making it big at the moment are like these really dark thrillers?
Yeah.
Because you think about things like Knit Ram and The Stranger and The Dry as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had something really good to say about it, that Australia is sort of this, sort of very wild, very new country in comparison to a lot of other places. But I think if you were an American and those were the Australian films you'd seen, you'd think, Australia only make dark, gritty crime thrillers. But we make some shitty comedies and shitty dramas, and
absolutely,
but we make other good comedies and good dramas.
But so not just The Castle, by the way. The Castle's great, but it's not our only comedy.
But also, like,
that's our Citizen Kane.
You got to wonder. That's right. Like, say in Greece, how well The Castle would do there.
Exactly right.
So
like how,
their castles, I guess.
They're sure,
they're going to be homegrown hits.
That's it.
Just not gonna
and we're just not going to get it because we don't understand the nuance of the culture as well as which is why this podcast exists, because we are exploring that. But it's just interesting. It's interesting to think that the first Greek film on the show, and we're kind of like, it's not that inherently Greek outside of its non-prudish nature. It's unashamed, unapologetic way of exploring sex through incest and being like, deal with it. Like that's kind of what I took away from it, is that's I've said like 4 times, that's the most European thing about it. You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of like, it's like people have keyboards. Get over it. You know what I mean? Like I kind of like that. That's what I like about European cinema in general.
It's a very hard film to define. Like even kind of nailing down themes and like I guess the purpose of the film and what it's trying to do and what it's trying to say. That it's hard to pin down. But like I said, I don't think it's a climax. I don't think it's a gasp and no. It's not. It doesn't exist in purely shock and offend.
Yeah.
I'm sure Yorgos has a purpose and has a meaning for it. I think it's just a hard one to kind of really pin down.
He doesn't also strike me as a filmmaker who's going to tell you as well. Yeah, like he's just
he likes you figuring things out.
I like that.
Fun little tidbit that I did see in my research for this film. In a 2012 interview, David Lynch
love
Lynch Dogtooth as, quote, a fantastic comedy.
You know what?
Well,
if anyone was going to do that, it's
David Bloody Lynch. That's for sure. And you know
what? Really good description for the film.
It is.
Like David Lynch finds this is a fantastic comedy.
That's the selling point, isn't it?
Like you buy Dogtooth on DVD, and it's got the little quote at the bottom.
Yeah, it says
it's just David Lynch, like quote David Lynch, a fantastic comedy.
Yeah.
You know exactly what kind of film you're in for. It's the guy who made Eraserhead.
Yeah,
That's right.
Mulholland Drive.
I just feel sorry for anyone who doesn't know who David Lynch is, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fix this up.
Just Google David Lynch. Google David Lynch's weather reports. I don't know if you've ever seen those, but they're fantastic. Who is your favorite character in the film as we slowly wrap up the Dogtooth?
That's a great question. It's because I don't think anyone's overly likable. It's hard to connect with them because they're so. Like, I mean, the parents are pieces of shit.
Yeah. And we haven't really talked about the mother either, who's kind of like complicit, but is it forcibly complicit? Is the husband? I mean, the husband isn't really lovely to her, but even their sexual stuff is quite, you know, that shot of them when he's just sitting on the TV, which, by the way, we will say Dogtooth is not prudish. We see everyone. Everyone's everything. It's like everyone's basically naked in this film, dad and mum as well. When they're sitting on the couch and he's just pantsless and she's topless, and they're just like, there's such a mundanity to their sex life. It's kind of like, have they punished the children because their marriage is shit? You know what I mean? Like, but he's so abusive that she's kind of like, I'm not going anywhere because you know what I mean? Like, there's another dynamic on top of that.
Yeah, I think that's a big dynamic as well. I definitely got that. Like when they're sitting around the dinner table and stuff. I'm just like, wow,
her fear when she goes to like make a phone, they have like a secret phone when she wants, and she can only call out to him, and it's kind of like, it's fucked up.
Yeah,
it's
very tense. It's very uncomfortable. Yeah. But I do like that the film doesn't spoon feed us, and we don't really know why he's doing this.
Yeah.
No, you don't, do you?
No, he never goes into how long he's been doing it for. It doesn't even say whether or not these are his actual children.
Wow. Oh my God.
Good point.
You know, like obviously
what the fuck?
Yeah.
But we don't know for certain that these are actually his kids.
Wow.
We don't know how many have come before or after them.
Imagine if he stole them all.
Well, that's what I mean. They could easily be.
And that's why he's got them in there.
Could easily be kidnapped.
What the fuck?
I like that.
Oh, my brains were going a million miles
I kind of now want to watch it again with that thought in my head.
Thought and mentality.
But
that's good.
It's really interesting because he's never overtly abusive in the literal sense.
No,
like the whole
totally,
concept is abusive, right?
Yeah.
But he's never, outside of when they, quote unquote, misbehave or do something they shouldn't do. Yeah. He's never, violent towards them or anything like that.
Sure.
So it's really interesting in that, you'll see these like family dinner scenes where everything feels normal to an extent and they seem like a happy family. Yeah. But then someone will do something that they shouldn't and suddenly it's like,
his punishments are fucked as well. Like, the VHS punishment was probably like one of the most hard to watch scenes in the movie.
I physically cringed at that.
That was hard.
And then
to
a
watch.
Scene later in the film with a character hitting themselves.
Yes.
That was tough to watch.
So
like wincing each time it happened. So that's it's not an easy film.
The father is a great actor. Christos Sturgioglou, sorry. Sturgioglou.
braver man than me.
Gioglo, I believe. Gioglu, maybe. Anyway. European gigolo. But plays the father.
He's really good. Look, everyone's so good.
Everyone is quite good in this film.
Really good. Yeah,
I would agree. Did you have in particular one that you wanted to shout out, or
probably the older daughter?
Really good.
The son? Yeah.
He looked really familiar, and I couldn't. But he's not even got a Wikipedia article, so I'm assuming he just has a face that looks like somebody else's face.
He's just done a lot of Greek films.
Yeah.
But I thought he was really good. I think he kind of.
This was his first movie.
There you go.
Yeah, right,
That makes it even more impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think he was really good, and as Josh was about to say, the daughter as well.
The older daughter,
The eldest daughter,
Angeliki,
Papulia. Yeah,
that's pretty close.
That's very good. Yeah,
she's also in Alps.
Okay.
She plays one of the main characters. Yeah, and then I don't remember her, but she's in the Lobster.
Oh, interesting.
Because
I need to watch The Lobster again.
Yeah, I actually do. Yeah.
I do love that movie. And you got to see it, Kieran. It's so good.
Add to the list. Killing of a Sacred Deer and The Lobster.
Killing of a Sacred Deer is so... The spaghetti scene alone.
That's Barry Keoghan as well.
Barry Keoghan,
Fucking love me some Barry Keoghan.
Yorgos
Yorgos binge in preparation for what's the new film called?
Kinds of Kindness.
Kinds of Kindness,
which is an anthology film.
Actually, that's a good idea.
Same
Just do
screenwriter, I think, as this is he's teamed up with again, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
And that's got a pretty, not to go on too much of a tangent, but pretty much a all-star cast.
Yeah,
Emma
yeah.
Stone, Jesse
huge.
Plemons is
Jesse
in it as
Plemons
well.
looks
Willem
good.
Dafoe's back again. Margaret
Yes.
Qualley's back again. So again, using again the same people that used in Poor Things, right?
He's just weird Wes Anderson.
He is, he is a weird Wes Anderson. I like that. And you know, well, speaking of if we're going to make a Wes Anderson comparison, I love the way his films look, but this is probably his most. There's still, I think it was shot on 35mm. It was very like the copy I watched was very grainy, and I liked the way it looked. Yeah. And he frames certain things quite well, but this is again. There's lesser, like he doesn't use his like classic fisheye lens that we saw in like Favorite and Poor Things there. And there's definitely like less of a grand scale compared to those two films. I found it's very
much more grounded.
claustrophobic. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But that's something interesting to talk about, I think, is the cinematography of this film, because it isn't that big, flashy, kind of period piece of The Favorite and Poor Things. And I imagine Killing of a Sacred Deer and The Lobster are probably still quite stylized.
Yeah,
yes.
right,
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Whereas this is very grounded. There's probably only a handful of shots where the camera actually moves.
Yeah.
Yes.
And pretty much all of them are in the last sort of 15 minutes of the film where things get quite frantic.
Yeah.
Other than that, almost entirely stationary,
static,
locked off shots. The framing and composition will often have characters, cut off at the neck.
Yeah.
So you'll be watching people lying in bed having a conversation, and it cuts off, the tops of their heads or cuts off of their chin.
Yeah.
Which is weird and uncomfortable, but very deliberate. I don't really know what the purpose behind it is, but it's very much an intentional decision to have these framed in awkward ways that don't make pleasing sense to the eye.
I think to me it gave it a slight documentary feel. Which kind of brings you into
it as an audience member,
house,
sure.
into the compound, into their life.
Very fly on the wall sort of stuff. And you're not supposed to be there kind of stuff, right? Yeah. It's very interesting, isn't it? So, yeah.
I think that works really well for this. I just don't think
agree,
if it was beautifully, done cinematography, I just don't think it would have had the same feel.
I think not to try and force a segue that doesn't exist, but I think it does actually have some very slight comparisons to the film that we're talking about next, in the zone of
100%.
interest.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I was going to say gardens, big compounds.
Not really leaving the compound.
Not leaving, uncomfortable watching.
Weird shit going on on the outside.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, what you're getting
Over the
told is
wall.
happening over the wall is different to what's actually happening.
No,
It is a good segue, but
it is.
So that's Dogtooth.
Yeah.
Recommend it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Star ratings. I'll start.
Yeah. Okay, Nick.
I will begin. What a dickhead. I'm going to go knock my dog tooth out after that.
What do you think about this film? I'll start.
You guys shut up, because I haven't finished talking
I've
yet.
got an opinion. I love it.
4 stars. I really like this.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. Again, it was my introduction to Yorgos so long ago.
Yes.
And even back when I first went, and I was like only 15, 16, I was like, okay, there's something about this film that's actually quite challenging to watch. And then I think now being older and wiser, that's 14 years ago, I guess, when it sort of came, when I saw it for the first time. And it's definitely a movie that every now and then since that point I have thought about. Like it's not one that's ever really left the mind. And watching it again, despite like small little things that I forgot, I kind of remembered a lot. I think that having that lasting power means there's something about this movie that kind of works, and there's a lot I dig about it. So four stars.
Yeah, I'm the same as you.
Nice.
Same thing. I remember first watching it back then, and really, like, it was, I hadn't seen anything like it before. And then on the rewatch, I had remembered quite a lot. So definitely had that staying power.
Yeah, for sure.
4 stars for me.
I'm going to go with 3.5.
Yep.
Just because
not enough incest.
Not enough. Yeah, all my favorite scenes.
Just
in Game of
needed one
Thrones
more scene.
featured Jamie and Cersei.
I wanted a scene between the dad and the son. Would have knocked it up to 4.
Honestly, get the whole family on it at 4.5.
Where's that family orgy we were looking for, right? Yeah, goddamn.
Come on, Grease, step up your game.
I can't wait for YouTube to not monetize this.
And we'll wonder why. No, I think
Apologies.
I think as I've kind of expressed on the show with some of the weirder films we've watched before, weird films just don't generally vibe with me as much.
Yeah.
I like something a bit more real to latch onto. I like being able to emotionally connect with the characters, and I just couldn't really do that here. I think there's a lot to like about it. I think it's probably one of those films that, honestly, on a rewatch could go up or down.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot to unpack, but there's also potentially some themes in there where it's like, does this mean anything, or does it just exist because Yorgos thought it would be, funny or interesting to do?
Do you think you would rewatch it then to sort of dig a little bit deeper? Is that something you would want to do?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think I'd be in a rush to rewatch it.
Sure, yeah.
But I definitely wouldn't, avoid it, especially compared to, I guess, like some earlier directors' films. Like, I'm not going to rewatch Barking Dogs Never Bite,
No,
probably.
yes, no.
Or to talk about, another director who started in foreign language and then went to English in terms of Denis Villeneuve.
Oh, yeah, of course,
I probably wouldn't watch
Polytechnique
Maelstrom,
and Maelstrom,
or August 32nd. Probably wouldn't watch
I've never
those
seen them.
No,
I fucked up when Dendy showed them and I didn't go. Because you went, didn't you? Did you watch?
I went. So Dendy,
that's
our local cinema chain, did a Denis Villeneuve retrospective where they showed a bunch of his old
It
films.
was like
at
just
cinema.
once the cinemas had opened after COVID, right?
Yeah,
it was
awesome. So I went and saw Enemy there, which was great. First time I'd seen that at the cinema, and I went and saw Incendies, which I'd never seen before, which was his last foreign language
Surely
film.
that's going to pop up on the show.
Yeah. Well,
The film started and no subtitles came on and they were speaking French. So obviously it was in Quebec, and I was like, oh, this is weird. Maybe we're just not meant to understand what the characters are saying.
Yeah.
And then it got about 15 minutes in and everyone else in the cinema was like,
Wait a second.
I think they just lost the subtitle file. And we went out and checked, and just for some reason they hadn't got the subtitle file.
How crazy is that? Hey.
So that was great.
Oh, no.
Man. Yeah, to get back to my point, I would definitely rewatch it, but probably not in a hurry.
Yeah. That's fair. I think that's completely fair. Yeah.
Nick, do you want to elevator pitch your film?
You like incest?
You like Bad Boy Bubby?
I think especially now after the most recent Oscar acclaim with Yorgos Lanthimos, I think it's always good to see where a director sort of started from and how that his themes haven't changed necessarily over the films, but how his filmmaking has changed over the last 15 years. And I think it's a very interesting watch. I think it's a challenging film. I think it's a confronting film, but I don't think it ever does it in a way that's just for shock value. I think, as David Lynch put it, it's a fantastic comedy. So take with that what you will. But yeah, I think, it's just such it's a great film to watch because you know how good Yorgos is now, but you can also see how good he was back then with that limited budget and stuff. And I think for one of his first films, it's definitely up there for me.
And this is a limited budget, so it was 250,000 euros.
Oh, wow. That's nothing, right?
No.
No,
because I don't know how the euro
would that be like $1 million
then.
US maybe? Maybe? Is that how economy works?
I think the euro translates pretty closely to the Australian dollar, doesn't it?
You're kidding.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a quick. So this is let's not forget, this is 2024, the year of our Lord.
So this was 15 years ago. So I don't know how
inflation, you know how it is, fellas. At the moment, 400,000 Australian dollars.
Yeah, wow.
So less than $1 million
amazing.
US.
That's crazy. That is crazy, actually. Yeah.
So that's really impressive.
Yeah, it was literally almost to the dollar on US, 270,000 US dollars.
Yeah, wow.
So, yeah, that's what he could pull off with that, and where the violence goes and what we do see, that's pretty damn good. So, definitely, if you're a Yorgos fan, if you liked Poor Things, I think, and if you weren't too confronted by the sex in that film,
if you thought Poor Things wasn't edgy enough,
go watch Dogtooth. But only if you're allowed to leave your compound. But yes, so that was Dogtooth, Yorgos Lanthimos, 2009, first trip to Greece.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm sure it won't be the last one. Hopefully not. But that is the end of another cycle of the boys' picks, which means we're now back to an Oscar pick for the next episode. And as Kieran said, we are going to the current Oscar winner for international feature film, just won the Oscar for the 2024 Oscars, is Jonathan Glazer's The Zone of Interest, a British filmmaker in a British production in a German language film. I'm very intrigued to talk about it because, we've all seen it recently. It's very hot in everyone's lips at the moment with its Oscar win. And there might be some differing opinions about it, just as a little teaser.
But before we sign off, because we like to keep our Oscars episodes kind of a little self-contained thing.
Sure.
Josh.
Oh, yes.
What's our film going to be for our next official episode of that 1 inch barrier.
It's so funny you say that, Kieran, because about
the fuck up.
about 3 minutes ago, I was like, okay, we're wrapping up. Oh shit! Am I meant to pick the next one, or is that?
I was watching you scroll through Letterboxd and I wondered what you were doing.
Professional set, professional show.
I take this serious. I take this job very seriously.
Josh has been sick this week. We'll let it slide.
Josh is always on top of it. It's always me you guys are wrangling in to get shit done. So I'm glad some of the heat's off me now.
Okay, I have got one,
Okay,
and
cool.
I believe I'm pretty sure this has just come onto Netflix. I think I saw it come up on my Netflix as a recently added. It's a little bit of a different film in that, from memory, I think it contains 6 short stories.
Okay.
Ooh, okay.
I like
Yeah.
this. Okay.
The film is called Wild Tales.
Wild Tales.
But either of you,
I've never even heard of it.
no,
When did it come out? Like 2018, 2019?
no, 24. Hang on,
Not the one I'm thinking of then.
2014.
Okay. So 6 short stories.
Yeah,
Is that first sort of anthology movie?
I thought it is actually 6 short stories that explore the extremities of human behaviour involving people in distress.
Oh, so another tense ride ahead
Sounds
for
nice
us.
and relaxing.
What country is that from?
I believe it's from Argentina.
Oh, we haven't been there yet,
don't
have
think
we?
we've been to
Not
Argentina.
No, we've been furthest into South America we've been is Mexico. And
Mexico.
That's
Yeah.
South America. So
Yeah, we go. Okay.
all 6 are directed by the same guy,
Okay.
Damien. Oh my gosh, Cisfron.
Okay. Argentina. Wild Tales.
but
You're-
it will
you're
be our, what, 3rd, 4th Spanish film?
Mine would be. Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, Wild Tales. So we'll have kind of 6 little
6
movies
little things to talk about. Yeah,
It
yeah.
should be a nice long episode.
It does.
how long's
it's,
the
it's,
movie?
it's 2 hours.
Okay.
It's
We'll
122.
allow it. There we go.
You can watch them in
I can do one a day
yeah.
in the 6
20
days
minutes.
leading up to the episode
You'll
coming
still
out.
leave it to the morning off.
So that's me. That's normally me. But that's another episode. So Wild Tales to look out for, and obviously our next episode will be Zone of Interest for our Oscars episode. All of our personal social medias are in the description below, our letterbox accounts and stuff. But make sure you're following That 1 Inch Barrier on Instagram. Make sure you find That 1 Inch Barrier on your podcast feed and on YouTube. Please subscribe, like, follow, all that stuff. It helps us out a lot, especially as we're rebuilding, building up the channels again. So thank you all for watching. Go lick a keyboard, I guess. I don't know. Is that what we? Is that how we finish it off?
Yeah.
Sounds good. See you next time, guys.
Off I go.
Don't record the next episode. Quick.